Good evening, and welcome again to Release Your Wings. I'm Dan Bagley, and tonight I'll be interviewing Shireen Chada of the Brahma Kumaris. And Shireen, tonight we're going to talk about resilience, bouncing back. Sound good?
Sounds very good.
Good. I was reading an article recently. Actually, it was an old speech by Steve Jobs, and some may not recall that he was at one point fired from Apple. And in this talk he was giving, he said getting fired from Apple turned out to be the best blessing he could have because he was starting over with a beginner's mind. He lost confidence briefly in himself and he had to pick up the pieces and say, okay, what do I do now? Which of course he's come back with an amazing amount of success. So I guess that's a good example of resilience.
That is a perfect example of resilience. I actually was recently reading research on resilience. And they were giving of all of these people, different people, someone who was supposed to be playing with the Beatles and he never got chosen and things like that. And how they said that was the best thing that has happened to them, just like Steve Jobs. And what the whole research, the end of the research showed with various studies and things like that, was that actually every single one of us has an inbuilt psychological immune system. And so resilience is that immune system, that hardiness, that resourcefulness. Every one of us has an inbuilt immune system. And so when things come at it, that this immune system takes over and makes things better.
So several metaphors popped in my head as you're saying this. One of the things is if you work on physical strength, lifting weights and the like, what really happens is the muscle gets torn down a little bit and then it strengthens itself because of the work, the pressure, the resistance that you encountered. So, or our feet get calluses when we walk on rough. It's the same thing. Our bodies are naturally resilient if we allow them to be.
Yes. So it's not necessarily just our bodies. Our psychology, the innate part of who we are as human beings, the being, not just the physical body, that is resilient. Our psychological nature is resilient.
So we keep praying for the mountain to disappear where we should be praying for the strength to climb it.
Right. Or that more mountains should come in our way so that we know how to climb them and really fly.
So that's an interesting thing because most of us push away from the challenges that make us uncomfortable. And what I'm hearing you say is maybe we should be saying, bring it on.
Yes, bring it on. Because only then, not only that inbuilt immune system comes into play, but also we start taking strengths. We start using things that we haven't used before. We start using muscles we haven't used before. We start spiritual muscles we haven't used before.
Well, I bet most people who are watching this with us, I can think of setbacks I've had that I look back and say, wow, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But I'm glad I went through it, and I'm glad it's in my frame of reference. And I bet most people feel that way. I suspect you encounter people also to say that was, like Steve Jobs said, that was such a blessing in my life.
Yeah, I mean, of course we shouldn't wish it on people because then that's not good wishes.
Right, of course.
But we can wish it that we are happy that these things have happened because I'm such a better person because of that.
Yeah.
And also the most important thing is I feel every time something like this comes up in my life, then it gives me an opportunity to take strength from God.
So I've heard coaches say that in every defeat are hidden the seeds of victory. In other words, you can maybe go over, in football, you can go over the tapes or whatever it is and find, okay, here's what we could have done better. So my guess is psychologically resilience also, if we will own it, will make us say, okay, what do I need to do? What actions do I need to take?
Yeah. Also, it's important because resilience is something, it's not necessarily that we invite it, it just comes.
Right.
Situations just come at us. And understanding a few things about resilience is important. For example, understanding a self-realization of who I am, that especially the self-realization, you know, I'm not this kind of female or that kind of male, or I'm not this kind of a person and I'm that kind of a person, or I have this kind of a job and not this kind of an education. But understanding myself, the self as the soul, the eternal being, that gives a lot of resilience. And also understanding that whatever has happened is actually beneficial.
Yeah.
And that helps me become resilient.
Yeah, I read somewhere that John D. Rockefeller, when he was presented with a problem of something had gone wrong, the first thing he would say to himself is, "That's good." And then he'd work toward making it good, which is, you know, I'm sure he'd never thought of the word resilience, but if that story indeed is true. But if that's the case, then we probably should have some self-talk that says, when I get through this, I'm going to be better off.
Yeah, definitely. And also that if I'm strong, if I'm resilient, then I look at things as entertaining. The things become very light. Because it is a game. Life is a game. When did I forget this?
Yeah. In traffic this afternoon, I forgot it for a while. But I think that's really right. Do you have anything other than just the reminder? Do you have a mantra you go through, or do you have just, oh, here I am again?
Actually, there's one thing. And to go into the spiritual concept of why is going to take me a little bit longer, but I'll briefly go over it, is this thought that I have conquered this before. You know, this is nothing new. This is this feeling of, especially I want to bring up Harry Potter here. There was this one time in the book, I didn't see the movies, but I did read the book. There was one time in the book he has to go kill someone. And so the only way he's able to do it is he goes into the future and sees himself doing it. And comes back and does it. And so in the same way, I feel that it's kind of destined for me to win, to be successful. And so this is really nothing new. I'm going to be able to go through this.
So what about people who say, I was just born to lose?
Well, they need to sing a different song then.
Yeah. So you're saying that's just an illusion that they've created.
Yeah, it's an illusion that's not beneficial.
Yeah.
It's not only attractive, but it's not giving anyone happiness.
Yeah. So if you're going to have illusions, you might as well have illusions that make you happy.
Exactly.
They give you at least give you the courage to face tomorrow.
Yeah. But what I've noticed
today.
is illusions really don't make you happy. I don't really believe in the adage, ignorance is bliss, because it's never very blissful.
Yeah. Or the old thing, if ignorance isn't bliss, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, so it's important. And also this thing that I remember maybe in a conversation we just had where you were talking about resilience, and when we were talking about losers, about victims.
Yeah.
And so if I play victim, then I am not going to be resilient.
Right. And in a funny way, if you play a victim, you're still successful, but the success is in being the victim. Sort of paradoxical. And this isn't just I think the thing we were discussing and we were chatting about, there are no victims, there are only volunteers, is the victim is the label you give yourself.
Yeah.
And that's different than saying, I've been knocked down, this is awful, I had the traffic accident, something happened, and I will survive, and I will come back stronger than ever. So that's sort of the volunteer part of giving up.
Part of it. I feel we audition for different roles.
Yeah.
Not only I audition myself, I audition people around me. And so if I want to play victim, and people don't realize how powerful they are. If I want to play victim, then I'm going to audition people for tyrants. So I'm going to find tyrants so that I can play my victim really well. And so what happens is when you're playing victim and someone else is, you're auditioning them and they're playing tyrants and all of these things, is you are not only, you're not realizing your own complete full potential.
Right.
But your actions are not inspirational to other people.
Yeah, yeah. So the issue isn't that we're without power. The issue is we have power beyond belief.
We do have power beyond belief.
And we attract things that reinforce the story we're telling ourselves.
Exactly, exactly. And I feel that resilience in terms of story, and the metaphor of the story, is that we have to remember that I am the hero of my story.
Right.
And on a hero's journey, things happen.
Right.
And they still go up, get up, move on. And ultimately, there's victory for the hero.
So I like that in the hero's journey, and also Harry Potter is the hero's journey, of course. So part of it might be in having the faith that the game is set up for us to win. And what we win is who we become in the process, not the number of baubles we pick up along the way.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's very well said. And also the hero's journey, I feel, is in the journey, in any story, in a proper hero's story, is in any journey, the hero goes through the journey, and in every journey he recognizes a strength about himself.
Right.
That he's had something, people have come to help, all of these things. And so if I play the right hero, I feel I can audition myself. First, I audition myself.
Right.
I can audition myself for a victim, or I can audition myself for a hero.
Nice.
So if I audition myself for a victim, then I'm going to look for tyrants. If I audition for myself as a hero, then I'm going to look for people who are really going to help me on my journey, will come my way.
Uh-huh. And in that sense, what we look for is what we tend to find. So if we're looking for bad news, we'll find bad news. It's kind of like when we first get a car, we suddenly see all of that car on the road. How many of them are on the roadway? It's not that everybody said, okay, now you got a new Honda, say, let's all drive Hondas. It's just, ooh, saw it.
Yeah, you notice it
Yeah,
more.
so if you're looking for bad news, you will find it just the same as you might find your brand of car or your bicycle or what have you.
Yeah, and also what happens is your auditioning yourself as a hero has a very attractive quality. It's an attractor quality about it. Or any role, actually,
Right.
even a victim role, it's an attractor quality about it. And that attractor quality will attract the right things for you to be victorious.
Right. So, and you're speaking like the vibration you put off.
Uh-huh.
But it's easy to see also by how people carry themselves, how their bodies, I mean, you can tell when someone's having a really awful day.
Right.
So I don't know if that's not the vibration. It's probably a result of the vibrational thing they're going through.
Right. It's not, a hero is not necessarily that they don't have awful days.
Sure.
A hero is what they're doing with that day, as
Yeah.
they're letting it get it down.
Well, by definition, if you're overcoming something, it is putting stress on the system. But it doesn't mean it's awful also. It may mean that it's not pleasant in the moment, but what I'm hearing you say is that if you have the bigger thing of here's who I become in the process, then that can make it better.
Yeah, and actually that's the only thing that's left, actually.
Yeah. What's the role of our peer groups or the support of those around us? Is it good to have a community that is itself resilient?
Yes, it's very, very important. It's very important. You know, I remember when I was watching my sister send her little children, they were very little, to daycare, and how when they first went to daycare they were getting sick and stuff because they went into a larger community.
Sure.
And the same thing actually happens to us. Is when we go into a community, all of these things come and we think, oh, but I don't like this, and I can't take this, and I can't take that. But what happens is when I do take that, and when I do, tolerate this, and when I do face this, and when I do all of these things, that I'm becoming more resilient, that I'm actually able to really thrive and play. And so a community is very, very powerful. It's actually a very powerful force. We have to understand that no one is independent. We are interdependent.
Correct.
And so the community I relate to, it's not to go find any community, but the community I relate to is important, is that I really give myself off in that
Right.
community and play the right hero role.
So it isn't necessarily that the community is telling you everything you do is wonderful, so you go on. It's the community that is authentic with you, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, yeah.
In the good and the
you
bad.
You hope they're not telling you everything you do is wonderful, because that's not reality.
Exactly. But they are calling you on your stuff if you're out of line, or they're at least sharing their perceptions in a real way. So in a funny way, I'm hearing this resilience is partially mutual supporting, but it isn't supporting like saying, rah, rah, you're perfect. It's mutual supporting like we give each other the right number of obstacles and resistance for us to get stronger as we grow.
Exactly, exactly. That's very well said.
Yeah, well, thank you. This has been enlightening for me, and I hope it's been for you as well.